Thank you for saying that. I always forget to do that. um, I'll do another. I'll do another intro. Um, that is like the one thing I'm just like I really hope I don't forget, and my nightmare is always imagined. Um, hey everybody. Hope you're having a great day. I was kind of just doing a little intro to say a little bit about my day, do some personal news, talk about why I'm doing this, talk about what's going on in the news and what your perception of the news is. And hopefully, we can have some dialogue together. Hopefully, we can all kind of process this together and also get some different opinions in there. And hopefully, all come out of this little session better citizens and more informed citizens. And yeah, hopefully, it's a nice, chill place for you too to kind of let your hair down, talk about some stuff that you want to hear about, because that's the kind of place that I want to cultivate. Um, Ultimately, my day was great. Weather was great. The next few days are going to be not so awesome weather-wise up in Maine, um, which is not ideal. Usually, we get bad weather towards the weekends, but I think we're supposed to get a stretch like 3 or 4 days of bad weather. But all good. I spent the day with my family, my little one. We did some great stuff outside, played around, went on a little forest excursion, and skipped some rocks. Classic summer stuff. Just kind of getting into the swing of the season, and yeah, she's super excited to be out of school. So I just remember what it was like when I was young. Well, that's now public, so don't be hating. Um, anyway, um, what was I saying? Forest excursion, summer stuff. Um, yeah, so kind of just getting into the swing of things for the season, and she's super excited to be out of school, and just yeah, trying to like come up with some cool things to do for the summertime, and have some cool little trips planned. So it's gonna be a great time. It's gonna be a great season, and I hope everybody is also getting into the festivities of better weather, more sunshine, and trying to do some cool things for the summertime because everybody enjoys a nice little break. Um, Having said that, if anyone wants to talk about their day, some cool things that are going on with them, I would be more than happy to talk about that and hear that. But if not, we can just jump right in. Couple things that I've been kind of hyper focused on. I honestly, the last few days have not been heavily involved in the news. Um, if it was anything, it was Israel Iran conflict. That it's an avant-garde expression of what a dresser is. No drawers, just what cool people are doing these days. Um, what can I say? I'm a minimalist, and I also like to see where my clothes are, without having to open up drawers. But I'm working on getting a dresser. Just don't have one at the moment. So that's my clothes storage story. So, yes. I mean, I think they're fine. I think my clothes are pretty happy. I don't think anyone's complaining. So, and it seems like I lost a viewer. So, I don't know if people want to hear about my clothes. But, yes, working on upgrading clothes storage space. Yeah, that might be a thing coming up in the future. But at the moment, torture is a good segue. Yeah, yeah, and that doesn't even narrow it down. Doesn't even narrow it down domestically or foreign. So the big things today, ever increasing tensions between Iran and Israel. They're trying to strike their underground bunker. I'm sorry, underground missile silo. And we have the G7 summit, which is very, very big. Apparently, Trump left that early. And the Russian asset said that should be the G8 because Russia got kicked out. I can't imagine why. Don't look into that when you create your own opinion about it. But yeah, can't imagine why Russia was kicked out of the G8. But he made a point to bring that up today in front of the entire world in typical Trump style. So we can kind of cover the G7 a little bit. They caught the Minnesota shooter, a direct, abhorrent act of political violence. And a member of Congress actually said that the Marxists deserved it. We can actually bring that up because I couldn't believe it. But in the same breath, I could believe it because it is a continuation of identity politics and ever increasing tensions and people using words to divide. And no one, like, not a lot of people know what a Marxist is or what Marxist ideologies are. But it sounds scary, just like socialism, just like anything. And they use it as a means to divide and also to make people that are already struggling and looking for answers, they give them a backboard for their suffering as a means to hate something and to be afraid of something. So, let me see. Let's bring it up, shall we? I actually wasn't even going to bring it up, but you know what? I don't even. Did he still keep up the tweet? He might have deleted it. I think he deleted it. Yeah, there's been calls for his resignation. I mean, most of the Trump admin has been called for their resignations. Different members of Congress were asking Pete Hegseth to resign the other day. So let me see if this will lead me to it. It still exists. Let me bring up the screen. All right. So this is what happens when Marxists don't get their way. The fallout from this has been astronomical. There was a senator that actually, I can see if I can bring it up. on another screen here. Senator email to Mike Lee. There is a senator that wrote to him, and it was a really, really, yes, it was a McCarthy moment where it was like, have you no decency, sir? So obviously, terrible comment by him in a moment where he could be uniting under extremely unfortunate and extremely terrible circumstances. He could be a uniting force. This is what Trump does too. He takes moments where he could be a uniting force and he could bring the country a little bit closer together. And then what he does is he further divides and he increases the temperature that both sides feel about each other. It's some real ugly bullshit. And X is obviously just a complete just shit show of people that are agreeing with some of the words this guy is saying and embodying the exact mentality of this guy that got caught engaging in political violence and it almost seems like when you engage with social media, because most people do get their news from social media nowadays, it seems like when you go on these types of sites, it's like everybody is a right-wing nutjob and everybody is just like, it just makes it seem like this country has gone to shit. In a lot of ways, it has, but it gives a false impression upon the majority. People think this is the silent majority, and it's not. It's just a good amount of people in their hug box just being loud and being annoying and being fucking really shitty people, to say it bluntly. And you have members of Congress that are enabling this kind of shit. And, Elon tweeted the other day that the left is a dangerous party. I don't know if he still left up that tweet. Let's see. Yeah, he again, instead of a moment where you could have people coming together and saying, hey, this is fucking terrible. This person is doesn't speak for us, doesn't speak for anything like that we uphold in terms of values or anything. We condemn political violence, like taking it as almost like a layup, like taking it as like a softball pitch, like a political softball pitch. And these people like Musk and Trump, it's like you give them these moments, and yes, like they are inherently violent people, but that's not stopped politicians in the past from talking out Democrat and Republican, talking out of both sides of their mouth. Bush did it, Obama did it, but somehow there was a disconnect, and Biden did it as well. You have a disconnect with Trump just being like, I'm just an unabashed piece of shit, violent dude, racist, xenophobic, sexist, and That's why his base, and this isn't new information to anyone, but this is why his base is so radicalized. They don't take in. It's kind of a thing, and I thought about it the other day when I was listening to actually a debate about the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Someone really said it in a very, very concise way. The left looks at ideas. So we look at ideas, we don't necessarily like lean into the person, whether they be a good person or a bad person. That's what it was. He made this person, he was a MAGA supporter. He made a inference or a comparison between Kilmar Abrego Garcia and George Floyd. He's like, your party upholds these shitty guys, and the BLM movement was like, you guys said this guy was just like this bastion of just like just he was an amazing guy, and he wasn't. He was a drug addict and this and that. So this guy's just spewing bullshit, and he actually I forget the guy's name on the other side that was debating him, but he was like, he took it as a moment to really break it down and concisely say, MAGA, they align themselves with the person. They don't align themselves with the idea. Leftists, liberals, they align themselves with ideas. So we have this clash, and where we're not meeting each other, obviously, in a place where we can have a conversation, because we're saying like, okay, you're saying George Floyd was, the poster boy for Black Lives Matter, but it wasn't. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. You're saying that he was the poster boy, but it wasn't. It was an entire protest. He was the catalyst for it, but it was an entire protest movement upon disproportionate policing in affecting the black community in police brutality. There was other things that were packaged in with that movement as the movement grew and developed, but to say that it was just George Floyd, it is stupid. And it's like, they can't divorce themselves from the guy, Trump. They can't divorce themselves. For example, he sold himself as being able to stop the Ukrainian-Russian war, and he sold himself as being able to drop inflation down, solve all of these things day one, and then the goalpost moves as time goes on. He's like, oh, well, it was caused by Biden, or, oh, it was actually more complicated than it looks. It will take time, or whatever. And his base just eats it up. And they're like, yeah, great. And it's like, oh, I'm a peaceful dove. And then he's advocating for, we might be able to bomb Iran to bring them to the table quicker. Or we might be able to, have them limp into the table, which will get us a better deal. And it's just, the base is sick of us going to war. The conservatives, the liberals are too. The conservatives don't back him on going into war. That's why he sold himself as a peaceful dove and saying he was, anti-war and anti-this. And now we're enabling Israel to attack them because Israel's wanted to attack Iran since the 80s, the 90s. And we get our way because if Israel attacks Iran, then that makes our talks with them, the 6th round of nuclear deals, better, because now we have more leverage and they'll come to the table and want to do business. And it will be a better deal than Obama's in 2015. And he always wanted to have a healthcare bill that was better than Obama's. And he was like, "Oh, I got the concept of a plan," and it's like you never had a plan. You just wanted to be better than Obama, and then the base was like, "Yeah, yeah, fuck Obama," and, and they don't even realize that the American Care Act or Obamacare was a conservative project. So, like, the main thing is they see the person. They don't see the ideals. They don't see the policy. They don't see the meat of the issue. So it will always be a moving goalpost for them. And for us, for the left, unfortunately, I have to lump in liberals and leftists. It's more of policy and what someone brings to the table in terms of ideas and actual things. Like, I don't give a shit if it's a flaming pile of dookie that I'm voting for. I really don't care. Black, white, Hispanic, man, woman, trans, doesn't matter. I want someone that's going to advocate for the American people. I want someone that is going to advocate for the working poor. I want someone to not put us into foreign wars. I want someone that will stand up to the attack dog in the Middle East, Israel. I want someone to do what is needed to, if you want to label it as an America First, actually embody it. Don't just say it because your base likes hearing it. So, sorry, Chris, I didn't read your thing. I've been concerned lately. I have talked to lefty people who don't think the minimum wage should pay for a full life. I've noticed a shift. Yeah, I I have noticed. I've noticed a shift in some people. I've noticed a shift the other way in some people as well. So I've seen it go both sides. Like, I don't want to out my brother. He's a very smart person, but he is a liberal through and through, and he sees poverty as a choice, but also he sees it as people should, if they work a full-time job, be able to pay for basic, needs and social, like housing and groceries and healthcare. And sometimes, like, his ideologies and his stances kind of run afoul of each other, and it's kind of interesting to see where, like, liberals kind of find themselves on certain issues. But it shouldn't be. It should not be a radical thing that if someone works a job, they should be able to at least pay for housing, healthcare, groceries, the necessities. The necessities. It's not like you can't even make an argument, oh, they're leeching off the system. They're working. They're working a full-time job. Sometimes people work multiple minimum wage jobs, either because of the circumstances that they've had in life, because they've unfortunately had to. They haven't had the proper schooling, there's all of these different societal forces that move people into those jobs. And who gives a shit? They're working a job. And you're going and being a patron of that job. So why are you complaining? Like, do you want everything to be automated? Like, the boomers can't stand when things are automated. You want an actual person that's bagging your groceries, that's talking to you at the counter, that's helping you on the phone. And more companies are going to engage in automation to save on operational costs and, increase their bottom line. It's just going to happen. And then they're going to turn around and being like, we can't get any workers. We can't get any good people. No one wants to work anymore. While they absolutely slash their working base and they slash people's pay, they slash their benefits, and they get rid of whole departments in the effort to show profit to their shareholders. And some of them want to show profit to get bought out, and that's their main gain or main aim. But yeah, it's there's no worker protections. There's virtually no worker protections. And I don't see either party addressing stuff like that, which makes it so you have more ire for the working class. And they look at the Democrats and they look at the Republicans and they're saying, like, who's helping me? I see a group of people that are more civilly conscious where they're talking about, you know, like trans rights, and they're talking about immigration, they're talking about this. But there is a huge group of white people that feel entitled, and they feel like they were promised something. They were promised a life, they were promised a job, they were promised a house, they were promised a dog, they were promised a wife. They're working more, they're working for less money. They don't have everything that they were quote unquote promised by their parents that did way better than them. And they've been left they've been left behind. And it's happened to a lot of groups. And I think it's contributed to that that increasing level of people advocating for going to the right because they see Donald Trump as a destabilizing force within the political party. And then it also enables them to bring out some of the anger that they have for the system. And when you use immigration as a means to, again, give people a backboard for their valid anger, then you are doing something over here and then doing something over here with this hand. You're giving people a distraction. You're giving people a something to focus on that has been used against the working class for ages now. Be mad at the immigrants while we continue to move wealth up to the 1%. And they will continue to use that as long as it works. And immigration detentions and these ICE raids still, I mean, it's going down in terms of favorability, but that's one of the main issues he got voted on. It was immigration, and then the economy. So he sold himself as being able to remove 20 million immigrants. And that's what people wanted. And then when they found out they were removing their neighbors, removing their the workers that were packaging up the produce and working in the fields and in making their new apartment that they were moving into, and they were moving their friends and their families and their neighbors, then it all started to dawn on people, oh shit. Like, they're not just removing quote-unquote criminals. They're just removing all of the people that are brown that are not quote-unquote from here. And ironically, they're living on land that was stolen from them. They're living on their land. And that's the deepest irony of all of it. And I feel like I want to go into that history at some point in the encroachment upon the U.S. government into, Mexican land, and then the Texas independence that rose from the Texans beating the Mexicans back, and then the Texans wanting to own slaves. And it's a very, very, very deep, tortured, terrible history of American imperialism. And if you cast it against what is going on right now, it provides a deeper deeper grief and deeper anger and deeper context for what is going on right now. Like all history, ultimately, if you can provide and look back at the scenes, the players change, but it all rhymes. It all is stemming from a similar place. It's like I know I'm jumping around a lot. One of the topics we're going to talk about is Iran and is Israel. A lot of the players are actually, ironically, the same. And it's the same pretext and the same arguments and the same people that are pushing us to when we were invading Iraq. And it's happening again, where we're being pushed into invading another country at the behest of another country that we've given lots and lots and lots and lots of aid to. You have a lot of conservatives that were very upset with all the money that was going to Ukraine, but when Israel was brought up, it was like, well, it's fine, I guess. It's like, be consistent. So, long rant over. This was personally funny. I've had this up while I've been talking. Is the tweet that I was talking about, the far left being murderously violent? Someone actually asked Grok to weigh in on Elon Musk's tweet. The far left is murderously violent, and Grok was like the community notes here. The claim that the left is murderously violent isn't backed by evidence. The cited incidents like the United Healthcare CEO killing or Minnesota lawmakers' murders show no clear ties to left-wing groups. Motives were often individual or unclear. Political violence spans all. And if you look at it, the political right, or the far right, I should say, is so much more violent. So much more violent. And that can easily be backed up by statistics. But if you just look at the groups, and you look at the groups and how they protest and how they act, like Antifa isn't a thing. But the amount of fundamentalist Christian groups and fundamentalist like neo-Nazi groups and you have all of these hate groups that are considered themselves on the right end of the spectrum. They're hate groups. It's like they far outweigh the far left groups that would be considered violent. They don't engage in violence at the level that far right groups do. It's just laughable. But Elon tweeting something stupid, very surprised. I remember when people were trying to tell me, oh, he's so smart, and so... No, he's fucking not. Like, yeah, he might be able to talk about some things. He might be able to, seem smart. But ultimately, he's a guy that's made some good business moves with already having enough money from his parents to back him up. He's bought all the companies that he's ever been associated with. And he's from apartheid South Africa. He's bringing that ideology to America, and he wants to see that fulfilled. He's very good friends with Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is with the Heritage Foundation and an architect of Project 2025. So ipso facto, you can see how all of this has played out. Anyway. So these are kind of just polls. I like to check in on this every week to see where things are kind of headed. So, direction of the country. Would you say things in the country today are generally headed in the right direction? Females, pretty low. Males seem to think pretty high. Off on the wrong track, 53%, 58% female, 48% male. Hispanics, they were a big group that showed out for him, very low. Off on the wrong track, 58%. Off on the wrong track for black, 71%. It's huge. White, 49%. You're going to continue to see these numbers go up. I'm kind of interested to see this in the age groups. It makes sense. Younger people hate him and hate what's going on more, obviously, than older people. So you can see a dip. But there is a small differential there, which is interesting. You would think that this group would be a little bit more higher than that. But 65 and up, 50%, off on the wrong track. Income, 50 to 100K. It's interesting. Interesting numbers. So this is YouGov, and you can just go on every week. They do a breakdown of different topics, different things, and it's just interesting to kind of put your finger on the pulse, see what people think, like his favorability, and how it's ebbed and flowed over time. Yeah, it continues to go up. I think, or I'm sorry, for unfavorable, it continues to go up. I think there was a little dip here. I wonder what was, I forget what was happening during that time. But yeah, you're again going to see those numbers go up for unfavorability. So, talking about the G7 summit, he actually left early. Nations are eyeing the G7 summit in Canada this week as an opportunity to strike trade deals with President Trump, or at least build momentum to ease tensions over tariffs. Japan, the European Union, Canada, Mexico all hope that FaceTime with Trump will help them persuade the president to lower at least some of his most onerous tariffs in exchange for a range of concessions such as higher military spending, action against China, and cuts to tariffs and other trade barriers on U.S. companies. The hope from America trading partner is that the direct contact with the president can break through impasses. That didn't play out. And they were trying to convince him and talk to him about de-escalation tactics, and that's what I think made it so it was a very, very quick or abrupt end to the meeting. Trump was non-committal when asked about the potential for new deals Sunday, saying there could be pacts announced at the G7, but before reiterating his threats to reapply tariffs if agreements can't be reached. He did the same thing, like threatening if a deal can't be made, it's obviously on the other party. Like if an agreement with Iran couldn't be made, we're going to bomb them. He said that and was very, very clear about that. So let's see. That's the budget bill. I think I have a video up here. Um, yeah, let's watch him and Starmer.
Thank you very much. We all know the great Prime
He actually
Minister
drops
of the UK,
this.
and we just signed a document. This is sorry about that.
A very important document.
A little windy out here. Give me that. We just signed it, and it's done. And so we have our trade agreement with the European Union, and it's a fair deal for both. Going to produce a lot of jobs, a lot of income, and we have many other ones coming. But you see the level of enthusiasm is very good. But the relationship that we have is fantastic. So I just want to congratulate you.
Well, Donald, thank you very much. This now implements on car tariffs and aerospace, our really important agreement. And so this is a very good day for both of our countries, a real sign of strength. So thank you again, Donald. A really important day for both of us.
Great people.
Has anything changed in the agreement since you spoke on the phone from the Oval Office?
How much?
No? This is implemented.
Mr. President, may I ask you a question, please? G7 leaders are calling for de-escalation in Israel and Iran, but you are the key to unlocking that.
That's right. And here I am.
And here you are.
Yeah.
So can I ask you, sir, have you spoken to Prime Minister Netanyahu? When might you speak to him?
I've spoken to everybody.
What will you say?
Israel is doing very well, as you probably noticed. And I gave Iran 60 days, and they said no. And the 61st, you saw what happened. Day 61. So I'm in constant touch. And
He's expecting them to come to the trade agreements, and he's like, yeah, they got bombed, so yeah, they waited too long.
as I've been saying, I think a deal will be signed, or something will happen, but a deal will be signed. And I think Iran is foolish not to sign one.
Mr. President, Iran is accusing Netanyahu of attacking them to deliberately derail your nuclear plan that you had. What do you say to that? Do you think that's true? And
Look, Iran should have signed the deal.
if it would help bring Iran to the negotiating table, would you guarantee that the U.S. would not get involved militarily?
Well, I think Iran basically is at the negotiating table. They want to make a deal. And as soon as I leave here, we're going to be doing something. But I have to leave here. I have, this commitment. I have a lot of commitments. I have a commitment to a lot of.
He's actually saying that Iran wants to come to the table with him now. Iran is not dumb. They know that the U.S. is assisting. Like, they were intercepting missiles. Like, they're aiding, obviously, Israel. Like, even, Marco Rubio saying, oh, well, the U.S. is not involved. It's like, bullshit. The U.S. is obviously involved. The U.S. wanted this to happen.
Countries, including the UK, where we just signed our deal.
Mr. President,
Settling on steel tariffs, those going to zero, or do you think
We're gonna let you have that information in a little while.
Can you guarantee that you're...
on U.S.-Russia talks, when will they restart?
They're starting already.
Mr. President, why do you embrace the European approach to apply more sanctions on Russia? Do the U.S. support that?
Well, Europe is saying that, but they haven't done it yet. Let's see them do it first.
you told me earlier that you could sanction Russia. Why wait? Why wait to sanction them?
Because I'm waiting to see whether or not a deal is signed.
Can you guarantee the UK won't be subject
And don't
to any
forget, sanctions cost us a lot of money. When I sanction a country, that costs the U.S. a lot of money, a tremendous amount.
No issue sanctioning Iran. No issue sanctioning, continuing to sanction Cuba. No issue sanctioning other countries. For some reason, Russia they just managed to slip by every time. Well, it would cost the U.S. That's never stopped us before. And I think I forget the name of the guy that did it. It was during the Bush administration and then leading into. See if I have it in my notes. It was in the Bush administration, and then he ended up having a position in the Obama administration. But he basically, instead of like putting direct sanctions on countries, he would just send this guy, and the guy would talk directly to the banks, and he would say, obviously, you want to do business. You want to do business on the world stage for your country. Like, it's vital. Like, because we're all, mostly major countries are involved in this globalized system. They rely on it. So, because also the U.S. has the global reserve currency, we can dictate a lot of the deals and a lot of who does business with us and who gets the U.S. dollars needed to execute some of these trades and plans. And he would just go directly to the banks and say, yeah, you better do this or we will not allow you to have U.S. dollars. Basically cutting them off from the global markets, essentially sanctioning them, but not officially. Just like we haven't officially declared war since World War II. Korea and Vietnam and the war in Iraq. Like, I mean, we haven't declared war in quite some time, and it kind of falls under that increasing executive privilege in the unitary executive theory that he's embodying, where you can just completely sidestep Congress in manners that affect and move global markets and affect people all over the world. So, that was him with Starmer. In his deal with the UK, the Trump administration said it would lower tariffs on British automobiles to 10% for the first 100,000 vehicles shipped a year. About the volume of UK cars exports to the U.S. Talks between the U.S. and the EU have progressed in recent weeks, but the two sides still remain far apart. People familiar with the talks say, as the U.S. looks for unilateral concessions from the bloc to lower some of the tariffs have imposed or threatened. The Japanese, who export over 10 times as many cars to the U.S. than the British, now view a similar quota scheme or other relaxation of auto tariffs as a necessity in any deal, with the U.S. agreeing to a deal that doesn't lower auto tariffs. They fear could lead to domestic political upheavals and even threaten the minority government of Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, according to people familiar with government thinking. One possibility is that the two sides could agree to an outline for a deal and then continue negotiations beyond the July 9th deadline. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said recently that the date could be rolled forward for trading partners if the U.S. deemed they're negotiating in good faith. Speaking of Scott Bessent, I don't know if you all saw this video of him. So he went in front of Congress, and I hope that this is a video. That is not what I want.
And at the same time, the Department of Treasury seems to be
Let me see.
Now that I use Monday service, AI makes solving tickets my form of meditation. Monday service is a ticketing platform that
Scott Besson, Secretary of the Treasury.
That one counts. Of this
Astronomically. And Scott Besson rolls out an oldie but goodie. Here he is being asked, what number is this? Representative Mike Thompson from California asked him this question in the hearing.
Mr. Secretary, can you point to one independent study, one study performed by an expert PhD economist who is not on the payroll of this administration that says that this legislation will not add to our national debt?
Well, Congressman, if
Yes or no? Can you point to one?
if we want to look at the CBO, which
No, I'm not asking you, is there an independent expert that you can point to that says that this bill will not add to our national debt? Yes or no?
yes,
There is?
yes,
What are they?
Art Laffer,
Pardon me?
Art Laffer.
Art Laffer?
Oh my God.
Great. That, I don't think that one counts.
So he invokes Art Laffer, who's the architect of the Laffer curve in trickle-down economics. And he wrote the idea of trickle-down economics on the back, famously on the back of a cocktail napkin. It was not backed by any empirical evidence. It was just his vibes. And he invokes this guy that's been discredited on either side. He led to, if you look up Art Laffer, Kansas, his policies crippled the state of Kansas, and with crippling tax cuts, disproportionately targeted towards the top, echelons of the tax bracket. So, yeah, these are the type of jokesters. These are the type of people that are in the Trump administration. I mean, they continue to show their own incompetence. They continue to show their ideology towards just out and about flagrant wealth transfers. And it depends on who you look at. Like, he's the Treasury Secretary. You look at, like, Pete Hegseth. You look at these people, and they don't hide. They don't hide their vision. It's very out and about. And they are continually shown that they have no business being in the positions that they are. Like Kristi Noem couldn't even define habeas corpus. And they're asking Pete Hegseth about military installations in different areas around the world that are hotly contested and have missile silos and stuff like that. And he's just like, oh, I don't know. What is this, a quiz? It's like, if you knew anything and had any sort of information, like maybe, you know, if you were an expert, like we tried to hire experts, very meritocratic job. I mean, he's the living embodiment of a DEI or DUI hire. It's like he has no business in their definition of a DEI hire, not the actual definition. But like, Jesus Christ, they have no competency at all. And they're fucking running the country. So, let's see here. I quickly wanted to talk about this. I know I'm jumping around. I don't have too much time. I did want to cover some things before I jump off. The Senate Republicans released new details about the Trump budget bill. They brought the $40,000 SALT cap down to its original standing at $10,000. So what that basically means is SALT taxes are state and local taxes. So to kind of give you a breakdown of it, where is it? There we go. Okay. Let's see. So, basically, the state and local taxes, under the current law, households can deduct $10,000 that they pay in state and local taxes. The latest version of the Build Back Better Act would actually raise the SALT deduction cap from $10,000 to $80,000 through 2030. And what it's doing is basically, it's effectively benefiting the top 10% of income earners. So, like, for example, like in high tax states like New York, you have taxes like property taxes and state taxes, and say they add up because they're talking about wanting to raise the SALT cap to 40,000. Say it adds up to $35,000 in taxes that you spend a year, then you could deduct all of that $35,000. So that's greatly benefiting people that are living in high tax states, and also extremely wealthy people. And that's a ton of lost revenue, tax revenue, that the state and the federal government would be taking in if the cap was raised. And they're talking about wanting to raise it from 10,000 to 80,000. So just 1.2% of the tax cuts would go to the lowest 60% of earners that were making less than $96,000 a year. Their average tax cut is less than $7. 94% of the tax cuts will go to the top 20% of earners. 80% of millionaires would receive a tax cut averaging, just for SALT, $15,590. So again, I kind of went over this, and I think one of my first streams, everything that's in the Build Back Better tax bill is guaranteed to take more wealth, to extract more wealth, and to put more pressure on the lower classes and the working poor and the middle class that is ever disappearing, and to funnel that upwards. And we know from the London School of Economics and just endless amounts of studies for trickle-down economics is that it doesn't work. That stays at the top that stays in their accounts. They invest that money, they don't spend it. It doesn't get reinvested into the economy. It doesn't stimulate the economy. It doesn't go down to the lower classes. You don't have more hiring. You don't, like, all of those talking points are wrong. And instead of just going to where the need is the working poor, the middle class, the people that are just trying to get by, instead of just addressing them, you have this convoluted system of benefiting the rich that already have it well off. They're already all set. Massive amounts of wealth. And it's benefiting those people disproportionately. So let's see what happened a couple hours ago.
Has released the draft text for its portion of President Trump's budget reconciliation bill. It includes a proposal to permanently extend the state and local tax deduction cap at $10,000. That is different to the $40,000 cap that was in the House's version of the bill. And this comes as the Senate looks to push that bill to President Trump's desk by the upcoming July 4th recess, not too long from now. And for more on this, let's bring in congressional correspondent Nicole Killion. Nicole, what else stands out to you with this reconciliation text, and how are lawmakers reacting to some of these changes?
Yeah, well, that SALT change is a big one, even though it impacts only certain portions of the country in terms of states like California and New York, where the state and local taxes, in the view of many lawmakers, is too high. So that's why they wanted to raise the cap on those deductions. So over in the House, that cap had been raised to $40,000 that family or an individual could deduct. Well, now under the Senate version, they have reduced it back to that $10,000 cap, although it extends that cap permanently. It was due to expire at the end of this year, but already we are hearing from a number of House Republicans who were involved in those very delicate negotiations with the House Speaker, criticizing this, particularly the Republican chairs of the SALT caucus, who say that this undermines the work that they did on this issue, that they hope the Senate will still continue to have discussions with them about this. There's a New York Republican, Mike Lawler, who's been very vocal on this issue, threatening to vote no against the final bill if this $10,000 cap remains.
And one of the other major sticking points, Nicole, has been potential cuts to Medicaid. So how did the Senate Finance Committee address that in this bill?
Yeah, well, that is another issue. I mean, clearly, when we're talking about the Senate Finance Committee, they have jurisdiction over the tax portion of this package and the Medicaid portion of this package. So in terms of Medicaid, one of the changes that was made was to this issue of provider taxes, which, you know, if you get into the nitty gritty of this for people who work in the healthcare sector, what this means is that in the Senate version, they have now brought that percentage down to 3.5%. And, you know, why that is significant is that states use these provider taxes as a way to fund their Medicaid programs, particularly in states that have Medicaid expansion. So by lowering that percentage or that provider tax, that basically some critics argue could eventually shrink the Medicaid program in respective states. And so again, that would, in the view of some, amount to potential cuts. So that is a concern there. There were many in the House who did not really want to touch this issue of provider taxes, but the Senate does take things a bit further. So that's in there. Obviously, this bill also raises the debt limit to $5 trillion, in large part to help pay for this bill, most notably extending the president's tax cuts.
And Nicole, before we let you go, lawmakers are back there on Capitol Hill for the first time since the politically motivated shootings in Minnesota this weekend. And we're also learning several congressional members were on the suspects' target list. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is of grave concern to a lot of lawmakers as they return to Capitol Hill this week. You know, this is a truncated week in that the Juneteenth holiday is coming up, so only the Senate is in session, the House is out. But we have seen a number of House lawmakers say that they were notified by Capitol Police that they were on this so-called hit list of the suspect who was involved in those Minnesota shootings, including Texas Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, Ohio Congressman Greg Landsman, as well as Hillary Scholten, who is Michigan, a Democrat who actually said she is postponing some of her town halls in the wake of this. So it is of grave concern. We saw a letter from Leader Hakeem Jeffries earlier today to Speaker Mike Johnson calling on the Speaker to direct the Sergeant at Arms to provide the maximum security for members, not only here on Capitol Hill, but certainly around the country, but also to expand or increase the allowance that members get for their security. So that is something, too, that the leader is pressing for. And we know that both in the Senate and the House, there will be security briefings for both members of the House and Senate tomorrow by both the Sergeant at Arms and U.S. Capitol Police to address lawmakers' concerns.
Nicole Killian.
So that leads me to, we don't really have time to watch the whole video. I did want to grab a drink of water. That kind of brings me to my next thing, the Minnesota politically motivated murders of the Minnesota lawmakers. Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband. And we briefly talked about Mike Lee at the beginning, saying this is what happens when Marxists don't get their way. Completely out of line, completely insensitive. But listen to Legia talk about the violence here. And hopefully we'll learn a little bit about her perspective of this being a larger issue.
Minnesota. You're tuned in to Why America. I'm Legia Miller. Let's get started. This weekend, in the early hours of Saturday morning, a man impersonating a cop and wearing a haunting rubber mask rang the doorbell of Minnesota Senator John Hoffman. He then entered the house and shot and wounded Hoffman and his wife. 90 minutes later, he arrived at the home of former Speaker of the Minnesota House, Melissa Hortman, and fatally shot her and her husband, Mark. He also shot the family dog, Gilbert, who had to be humanely euthanized after the fact due to his injuries. The shooter then fled on foot, leaving a vehicle that was identical to a police van, lights and all, that contained a list of other prominent Democratic officials and abortion rights activists, as well as No Kings Protest posters. After the police were called to John Hoffman's residence, an officer had a hunch the shooter might be headed to Hortman's residence 5 miles away. When police arrived, they allegedly witnessed the man shoot and kill Mark Hortman through the open door of their home before he fled on foot. What ensued was the largest manhunt in the state's history. They identified the shooter as 57-year-old Vance Luther Bolter, and after a 2-day manhunt across multiple counties, someone who lived near Bolter's home caught the man on his wildlife camera, one of those cameras that you put in the woods and it captures video of passing wildlife. Well, it captured video of a passing gunman this time. Authorities were able to cordon off the area and eventually found him in the middle of a field and were able to apprehend him without incident. He has been charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, which is the highest charge he could be given via a filed complaint in the state of Minnesota, but prosecutors will be seeking first-degree premeditated murder charges against him, which requires going through the process of a grand jury indictment. He's currently in federal custody and has also been charged with 6 federal counts against him, including stalking and murder, charges that could lead to the death penalty. You guys, even though everything seems really bad, one thing is still really good: bread. And I'm thrilled to say that my partner on today's video is Wild Grain, the first bake from frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, artisanal pastries, and fresh pastas. It's a carb box, y'all, delivered straight to your door. Wild Grain partners with small bakers and pasta makers across the country to bring you fresh carbs. Like, what more could you ever possibly want? Get that fresh sourdough without that work. They use slow fermentation that can be...
I don't want to hearing an echo, sorry. I don't want to take any money away from her at all, and I want her to get her proper ads because she does a good job. So yeah, we're just not going to skip through it because I'm watching her video and I'm streaming it her content, so I feel like I should kind of give her her due. So we'll just sit through it for a moment.
Do not. Be sure to click on my link in the description and use my code LEGIA30 to get $30 off your first box, plus you get free croissants for life if you use my link. You heard that right, free croissants for life if you use my
free
link
croissants
along with code LEGIA30. Honestly, you're welcome. Thanks, Wild Green.
Is private student loan debt wrecking your life?
I'm not going to watch
you
this
really
ad.
need to talk to Y-Refi.
Yeah.
Y-Refi.
Melissa Hortman
GFY.
is the former Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives. By all accounts, Hortman was as Minnesotan as they come. Hardworking, no nonsense, pragmatic. She spent 2 decades of her life serving the people of Minnesota in the state legislature. During her tenure as Speaker, she oversaw the passage of legislation that championed abortion rights, free school lunches for kids, and the expansion of paid medical and family leave. Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon remembered her saying, quote, "She was steely and strategic and savvy and yet so likable as a person because she always remembered people's humanity, even and especially if they were on the other side of the aisle." The shooter, Vance Bolter, lived in a rural area about an hour southwest of the Twin Cities with his wife and children. He also rented a room in North Minneapolis he apparently would use when he worked in the area doing overnight shifts for a company that handles eye donations. He was allegedly in the process of trying to get a security company off the ground, which is why he owned a vehicle that looked like a cop car. According to the Wall Street Journal, quote, "A website for Praetorian Guard Security Services lists Bolter as part of the leadership and advertises armed residential security and personnel who drive police-style vehicles. Quote, "We drive the same make and model of vehicles that many police departments use in the U.S. Currently, we drive Ford Explorer utility vehicles," the site says. Law enforcement said a black police cruiser was seen at the lawmakers' homes. Nobody answered the company's phone line on Saturday. According to NPR, quote, "In social media posts and websites, Bolter said he had extensive experience as a security professional with, quote, training by both private security firms and by people in the U.S. military. NPR found little evidence to support Bolter's account. He appears to have worked most of his career in the food service industry, and one longtime friend described parts of Bolter's narrative about his life as fantasy. That longtime friend is David Carlson, his roommate in North Minneapolis, who told local Fox News 9, quote, "He was always kind of into the military stuff, but it was just, we were always like that. Me and him, we would play army men." Carlson also confirmed that Bolter was a Trump supporter and strongly against abortion rights. Bolter's other prior work included work as a pastor at a church in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He apparently preached internationally.
I wonder if she's going to show the video of him preaching, because it's terrifying. He preaches anti-LGBTQ, anti-abortion, like Christian fundamentalist bullshit. Yeah.
Saying he wanted to seek out, quote, militant Islamists in order to share the gospel and tell them that violence wasn't the answer, end quote. This, according to reporting from the Wall Street Journal, which reviewed an archived website for his ministry. Bolter may have met Senator Hoffman when Bolter served multiple terms on the Minnesota Governor's Workforce Development Board, where he was first appointed by Democratic Governor Mark Dayton and then by Tim Walz, though for the record, governors appoint thousands of people to boards and commissions for unpaid roles. The one Bolter served on had about 60 people, and Tim Walz's office confirmed that they weren't familiar with Bolter. Bolter's online presence makes it clear that he was a guy who flitted around from job to job, had a lot of big ambitions and ideas, but never seemed to get anything off the ground. According to NPR, quote, Bolter apparently worked for a number of years as a convenience store and food services manager, posting this spring on LinkedIn that he was, quote, looking to get back into the U.S. food industry. "I'm pretty open to positions," Bolter wrote. "Other leadership positions outside of the food industry, I'm willing to hear about as well. I have been doing projects in the Democratic Republic of Congo in Central Africa the last 3 years."
I think I heard something about him being private security for like Nestle and doing like private security for these companies, and it kind of seems like with that kind of a role you're more of like a mercenary. You get sent from like place to place to place to place, and yeah, that just seems very, very, very sketchy. Yeah.
His LinkedIn reeks of a very self-important person who hasn't actually accomplished much in his life but talks a big game. He's unemployed and trying to find a job, but then says he's willing to hear about leadership positions, as though someone is going to beg him to take on a leadership role somewhere. He was unimportant, but striving to feel important, and probably absorbed a lot of online rhetoric spewed by other small men trying to make themselves feel better about their own mediocrity. What happened here in Minnesota over the weekend was horrific, and the consequences of the actions of one clearly deranged man, potentially working with accomplices, but that's still being determined. But it's also a microcosm of and a foreseeable outcome of the growing unrest and violence happening across the country, largely instigated and encouraged by the right. As an example of the callousness with which the right responds to violence, look no further than Republican U.S. Senator Mike Lee, who tweeted about the killings, quote, "This is what happens when Marxists don't get their way." Labeling Democrats as Marxists is a favorite habit of the right as a way to dismiss anything and everything that goes against their hardline stances. They don't always even have to be Democrats, like when they call a Bush-appointed federal judge a Marxist for ruling against them. But Mike Lee took it a step further by using despicable politically motivated violence as a means to make a political statement, and not only that, a political statement that makes no sense. Now the Trump voter who hates abortion and targeted Democrats and abortion activists is a Marxist somehow? It's a statement that lays bare the clear misuse of the word Marxist. It's a label that the right flings around to mean whatever they want it to mean in the moment, to the point that it actually doesn't mean anything when they say it. And it is this spread of disinformation, this lack of condemnation of violence on the right, this often encouragement of violence from the right that has been breaking down our democracy since Trump first came to office, to the point that we no longer have much of any faith in democracy at all. Trump himself did issue a statement condemning the violence, though he did not reach out to our governor, as presidents typically do when violent incidents occur in a state, and he then turned around and called Walz grossly incompetent instead of addressing the violence or doing anything to show true leadership in the face of violence. He used it as a means to make a political statement against our governor, Tim Walz, as retaliation, I guess, for the 2024 election in which Walz ran as the VP candidate with Kamala Harris. In January of last year, so 18 months ago, I made a video about how political violence will erode our democracy. Sitting here a year and a half later, 5 months into the second Trump administration, it's actually wild watching that video back, because it hasn't been that long, and yet so much has happened to deeply erode our democracy in that time. Back then, I was warning about the potential for the erosion. Today, I'm pointing out how we have arrived at what I warned against back then. A lot of the politically motivated violence and threats we saw, especially leading up to the 2024 election, was directed at election officials, those tasked with overseeing our elections. The Brennan Center conducted a nationwide survey of election officials early in 2023. The results found that nearly 1/3 of all election officials surveyed had personally been abused, harassed, or threatened because of their job. And
you saw this happen to election officials and vote counters and people that were tasked with operating voting machines, and like every bit of people that were dealing with the election, top down, received death threats after the 2020 or 2016 election. I'm sorry. The 2020 election. How did you... Weird. Anyway. Those types of that type of violence was directly caused by Trump's denial of the election outcomes, and people seeing that, oh my God, there's this conspiracy, and wanting to see something that wasn't there and was consistently proven to be false in over 40 or 50 court decisions. It caused people to get death threats. It caused people to actually be physically harmed. it was a very, very tense time, and then you lead up to right now, and it's only gotten worse. Jan 6, you have his language increasingly becoming divisive and incendiary and wrapped in xenophobia and racism. It's all contributed to a culture of separation and hatred and tribalism. And it is the worst form of identity politics. And I wish, like, what she's saying with Marxism, it's ironic because within Marxism, it's a socio-philosophical standpoint about examining history through the lens of what's called dialectical materialism. And all that means is basically like looking at the contradictions between the people that have and the people that do not have. He wasn't really, like, he didn't focus a lot on, because people are like, oh, he's a communist and you're a communist, you're a Marxist. It's like, ironically, Marx didn't focus a lot on communism. He focused more on capitalism and focusing on, like, the inherent contradictions within capitalism and looking at history through a means of materialism, about the movement of social classes and the clashes that you would have between what he called the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. And people consistently will not know, and it's okay not to know, but they'll like say, oh, you're a Marxist, you're a communist. And I mean, we can go through the whole history of how those words have been demonized going, all the way back to the early 1900s, into the 1800s, into the Parisians that were in the streets, and they were the Paris Commune, and they were in America called the Communists, and in the American media they were propagandized as being extremely violent, and the American media garnered a lot of fear about communists, and it made Americans fearful that it could come over here, and it mainly made business interests very, very nervous that people would start to wake up and gain class solidarity and class consciousness. And the thing that really upsets me is, with all of this political violence, with all of this hatred, with the hug box that people are in online that reinforces algorithmically their hatred and their misinformation that they get, they don't have solid media literacy. They don't have a solid group of people to talk to in real life to maybe like quell some of their violent thoughts and their misplaced hatred, and they're isolated people, and we talked about how a lot of people are rightly angry because both political parties have overlooked their needs and their concerns, and have not garnered policies and created policies to address their concerns. But what one party does, the right, it gives them a permission to be angry, and it gives them a permission to be angry at certain groups. And if we just realized, regardless of where you come from, immigrant, American-born citizen, it doesn't fucking matter. You have more in common with your neighbor than anything else. You both work, and even if you don't, you're closer to being poor than the guy that is owning the factory, that is owning the that has the massive stock portfolio, that these big whales, like, you have nothing in common with these people. But there's a lot of people that are like, oh my God, they're doing so much for the economy and this and that, and like whatever they do is so righteous and they should make that amount of money. And it's like, should they? Like, your coworkers, why they separated people on the factory lines and why Amazon has so much turnover, I believe I talked about this at other maybe another stream, is they don't want that solidarity. They won't want you to learn about your coworkers and then ding, oh, I actually have a lot of common grievances with my coworker. He's also being underpaid. We're being overworked. Since the 80s, productivity has gone up 230%, and then pay and wages have stagnated and only gone up, I believe, 11 to 12%. It's absolutely out of control, and the wages that you have seen that have gone up, that small amount, that 11 to 13%, have been weighted to people that make a ton of money already. So the CEOs, the managers, the people that, you know, take the profits and line their own pockets. And we saw with the 2008 financial crisis, no one was held to account. We've seen with these huge movements in the United States that rich people have a different form of justice, and people that are in minority groups like African Americans, when they saw what happened after the BLM protest, where lots and lots of Americans went out and protested and wanted to see police reform and change and better policing laws and more accountability and all of these different things. They were met with politicians that ultimately didn't listen to them, seemingly. You had companies that had a black fist. Every time it's Pride Month right now, they throw the corporate rainbow flag up, but they still donate a ton of money to Republican congressmen that advocate for anti-LGBTQ laws. So they play both sides of the system. So I wish we all would realize how much in common that we have with each other, and realize it's not a culture war, it's a class war. It's not a cultural issue, it's a class issue. We have so much more in common with each other than we think, and engaging in solidarity and engaging in mutual aid is so beneficial. I just wish more people saw it. But we talked about it at the beginning of the stream, how effective utilizing immigrants as a scapegoat while they continue to create policies that enrich the already rich and wealthy is a very, very good system. We don't have a ton of time. I know this isn't super, super polished. I just quickly wanted to... sorry if the screen's kind of flickering there. We did get to cover a good amount. We talked about the political violence that just happened in Minnesota. It looks like the lawmakers are going to survive despite being shot 17 times. Unfortunately, the first couple that he killed have obviously lost their lives, but the other couple, it seems like they're miraculously going to pull through. I did say I was going to cover very quickly Iran and Israel. If you are at all questioning why and wondering why Israel seemingly attacked Iran, there are videos I can bring up, and I will, about Netanyahu. Sorry about that. Netanyahu advocating for bombing Iran. And he's been doing it for many, many, many years. Let's see. So, if you thought this was a new thing,
this
it
week's
is not.
strikes exemplify Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's 30-year obsession with his sworn enemy Iran.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival.
The chairman of the right-wing Likud party has called Iran an existential threat to Israel since he rose to power in the 1990s. His domestic political opponents have said that he has been obsessed with bombing Iran, with a rival even calling it a messianic conviction. But for Netanyahu, the danger goes beyond atomic weapons.
Iran is what Netanyahu calls the head of the snake. It's in charge of regional proxies such as Hezbollah in Lebanon, militant groups in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza and the West Bank, and the Islamic Jihad. He says Iran finances and arms all of these organizations, creating an existential problem. The fact that it could someday possess a nuclear bomb increases Israel's existential risk.
According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran is the only state without nuclear weapons that has managed to enrich uranium to 60% fissile purity. A level of 90% is necessary for an atomic bomb. In the past, Israeli intelligence officials have argued that attacking Iran risks harming Israel's security, as Iran's persistent sense of being under threat from Israel would accelerate its race for nuclear weapons.
So, just kind of quickly shows you it's been on his mind for over 30 years. And I briefly touched upon it in the beginning of the stream where I said that this is a win-win for both parties, for the United States and Israel. I mean, for Israel, multiple reasons. Iran has been the only real threat to them in the region and the only means of really holding them to any account. There's the axis of resistance. I talked about it last stream. If you are unfamiliar, Iran backs Hezbollah, which is out of Lebanon, southern Lebanon, in Syria. And you also have Hamas in Gaza, and you have the Ansar Allah movement in Yemen, which is still operational. Hezbollah has been greatly diminished from October 8th, 2023. They've lost around, I believe, around 4,000 soldiers. Iran used Syria as a to store weapons, to get reinforcements, to get military info and intel, and because of the great reduction in the power of Hezbollah, Syria has been kind of taken out of the game, and also with the Assad region, regime being ousted, you have now an American asset that is in power over there. So they've lost their backup to be able to provide some assistance. So why it's a win-win. You have the United States that was engaging in the 6 rounds of talks with Iran, and you have Israel that, as the video I just showed you shows quite clearly, that they've been wanting to bomb Iran for quite some time. And the United States wanted a better deal than Trump got. Trump wanted to surpass Obama in terms of creating a deal with Iran to limit their ability to enrich uranium. And he felt as though if there was an attack from Israel, then that would bring Iran hobbling to the negotiating table and provide more leverage for the United States. So it's a win-win. Obviously, the U.S. is going to distance themselves, but they have provided military intelligence, obviously, as they always do, and supplying them with a massive amount of arsenal in missiles, and also helping them intercept some of the missiles that were coming over. Haifa was bombed today. Let's do the AP. Israel is actively taking down all live streaming equipment. So that is a live stream of Jerusalem. I don't think we've seen anything. I haven't seen anything. Let's see if anything happened as we are streaming. All right, so this is 1 minute ago. Just in, Axios reports the White House is discussing with Iran the possibility of meeting this week between U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. According to 4 sources briefed on the issue, the meeting has reportedly not been finalized. One senior Trump U.S. official told Axios Trump sees the massive bunker busters needed to destroy Iran's underground enrichment facility at Fordo, which the U.S. has and Israel does not, as a key point of leverage to get Iran to cut a deal. The official added, they do not want to talk, but what we do know is they have been brought to their knees fully, so they realize that in order to have a country, they have to talk. And assuming they get there, is there any degree of enrichment that you would allow them to have? So just kind of like I brought up at the very beginning there, this is all to basically cripple them and to then bring them to the negotiating table weaker. So I believe, I don't know the updated numbers, but I believe Israel has killed over 200. Yes. Iran, 224 people killed in Israeli strikes.
But it's hard to watch when you do. A deputy foreign minister posting this damage to his ministry. Several civilians injured, he said. Israel's defense minister clarified Monday he meant no harm to Tehran's residents when he said earlier the city would burn unless Iran's missiles stop. But many have seen flames already and are fleeing the capital. Nothing like this before in their lifetimes. In the western city of Kermanshah, state media posted images of the intensive care unit of a hospital damaged. CNN has reached out to the IDF for comment, and it's unclear if anyone was hurt. But numbers Iran's health ministry have given speak of just how widespread.
So there's an interesting take, and I should have saved it. By no means a expert in any of this. I did see an interesting thread that showed his contention was that Israel specifically targeting the scientists and killing them with their families was an act of war, which, I mean, for Israel is like a Monday, but is Monday, but by attacking them because they're a non-combatant, they're not actively assisting the military in the production of any nuclear armaments or anything. Their specific role is an academic role. So they are a non-combatant. They were murdered and targeted. So his contention was that it was a war crime in the international and academic community. Not being more vocal and outraged about it was shocking to see. So just an interesting, thought-provoking perspective. But so again, going back to the G7, he left the group of seven. President Emmanuel Macron said Trump had made an offer for a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Trump had earlier urged everyone to immediately evacuate Tehran, and it reiterated that Iran should have signed a nuclear deal with the United States. Much was accomplished, but because of what's going on to the Middle East, President Trump will be leaving tonight after dinner with heads of state. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said on X, "The G7 has struggled to find unity over conflicts in Ukraine between Israel and Iran as Trump overtly expressed support for President Vladimir Putin and has imposed tariffs on many of the allies present." A U.S. official said Trump would not sign a draft statement calling for de-escalation of the Israel-Iran conflict. Still, Macron said Trump's departure was positive, given the objective to get a ceasefire. I find that to be very hard to believe. But this was an interesting thing that I found, and this is from Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is the defense. What is her title? Before I even type it in, National Intelligence, Director of National Intelligence. Jesus, just had a complete brain fart. So, 90 days ago, the United States intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khomeini has not authorized the nuclear weapon program that he suspended in 2003. And interesting, and all this really means, and all this is really meaning is Israel wants to see a regime change. The United States wants a more passive Iran. They want to see also Israel get their way. That helps them. This is interesting, seeing these two talk and hearing some of the things.
Why was Tulsi Gabbard not invited to the Camp David meeting all day? You know why Tulsi Gabbard still to the American public has said the last public statement is that the program was not back up and running, and now we have from Bibi by himself on Fox by Brent Baer that the thing was 12 to 13 months away. It wasn't this weekend.
I know.
And this is by his own thing. And we also know that it was a decapitation, as we said on Friday. It wasn't just about the nuclear program. It's a decapitation of total leadership. So this is a total regime change, which, by the way, you may have a plan for regime change, is fine, but you got to bring the American people along. Let me go back.
By the way, I said that publicly last week. This is the point of this is regime change. I know everyone involved. I know. I'm telling the truth. I have no weird motive here at all. I don't hate Israel. I'm not.
Plus, you know the players, and you went to, and you know the Iraq situation.
This isn't a regime change effort, and why not just say that? But you're a Holocaust denier for saying that. Stop. Let's have a rational conversation about what our aims are here, and maybe you can convince me that we need to support a regime change war in Iran. Tell me how that plays out in a country of 90 million people. Have you thought it through? Do you even care? And the answer is no. We have a economic and political and demographic crisis in Europe because of U.S.-backed, Israel-backed
Syria
wars in the Middle East. That's what's destroyed Europe, where my ancestors came from. And I spend a lot of time there, and I love European culture, which is Christian culture. And it's destroyed that. And shut up, you're not allowed to care. Who's making the rules here?
Hearing these two guys say actual things that semi-make sense is kind of startling. But this is from Tulsi. Back in 2020, we do not seek regime change, Trump declares as he escalates his regime change war against Iran. Neocons like Graham Bolton are cheering to all who voted for Trump because of his anti-war rhetoric. It's time to realize he lied to you. Stand with me against Trump's Iran war. All these people do an about a face. All these people that were Trump haters, they all come back to the fold. And to the people that say, well, Trump is just taking a massive dump with domestic politics, with geopolitics, foreign policy, everything, I would agree. But to say that Kamala would be much different, I disagree. And this is Biden's White House coordinator to the Middle East. Just listen.
Global affairs analyst and was a White House coordinator for both the Middle East and North Africa. We're seeing Iranian missiles hit central Tel Aviv and Haifa, for that matter, as well, going after oil refinery projects in Haifa. Where do you see all this going?
I think what comes back to one question: Fordo. Fordo is the deeply underground nuclear enrichment facility buried into a mountain about a half-mile underground. That is something the United States can take out. It's something the Israelis will have a lot of difficulty doing. If this ends with Fordo intact, you could actually have a worse problem. You could have Iran more inclined to go to a nuclear weapon, and they have that infrastructure intact. Two ways to deal with Fordo. Number one, a diplomatic deal. I think if the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called Steve Witkoff, President Trump's envoy, tomorrow or today, and said, hey, let's sit down on the deal you put down a month ago. Remember, the U.S. put down a deal a month ago to basically get rid of the risk of an Iranian nuclear weapon. I think that this war would stop. The second way to take out Fordo is a military operation. It would be a U.S. military strike. But these can be combined. The more Iran thinks that might be coming, the more likely you're to have a good diplomatic outcome.
Well, the Israelis could launch that strike against the Iranian nuclear program in Fordo too, if the U.S. were to provide Israel with those huge bunker buster bombs that the U.S. would use in trying to destroy that Israel doesn't have.
Yeah, well, that's going to take a long time. You got to train pilots on a B-2. You got to train how to use that munition. That's going to take a long time. I don't think that's a real option. Look, Israel has tactical advantage here. They have air supremacy. They can hover over those nuclear facilities, render them inoperable. But you really want to dismantle it, it's either a U.S. military strike or a deal. Again, I think the two are combined. Iran's strategic culture, they'll absorb a blow and then try to just kind of live to fight another day. They'd be happy for this to go on. If they know their nuclear facilities are truly at risk and Fordo's truly at risk, and the Americans are prepared to do that, I think that's the best way actually to a diplomatic outcome. It's not just a diplomacy, it's what are we talking about? And I think what the Americans want is, okay, let's sit down on the offer we put down a month ago. The Americans believe it's a fair offer. I know it's discussed with the Brits and the French. It's actually good the G7's happening right now. I would not call for full de-escalation. I would call on Iran to get back to the table, take the deal the Americans put on the table. At least that's the basis for talks. Otherwise, this is going to continue to go on. We have to get also, Wolf, we have missile destroyer ships. We had seven of them in the theater in the October attack of last year, 200 ballistic missiles in one night. I think we're moving those resources into the theater now. We got to get that stuff in place because there's missile math. The Pentagon's probably doing missile math. How many missiles does Iran have left? How many launchers do they have left? That's a real limitation. And how many missile interceptors does Israel, together with the U.S., have in place if this goes on another few nights?
I was going to ask Nick Robertson, who's right in Tel Aviv for us, but we lost our connection with him, if he was surprised, if Israeli officials are surprised and disappointed that their air defense system, the Iron Dome and related air defense equipment, was not necessarily completely successful in preventing these Iranian missiles from hitting downtown Tel Aviv and Haifa, for that matter.
It looks like about 5 to 10% of the missiles are getting through. That's actually a pretty good defense.
It can kill a lot of Israelis.
What Iran is doing is kind of massing the barrages on specific areas. And again, we have to have these missile destroyers in place to reduce the risk. Look, overall advantage here, tactical, goes to Israel. They have air supremacy, air dominance. They can continue to hover over sites, take targets out. Over time, those missile launchers that Iran has are going to...
Listening to how...
We got to get the interceptors in place. But strategically, it's a big question. Come back to Fordo.
White House coordinator
intact, this ends with Iran having that enrichment facility there.
Basically just advocating for the
this
same
is not a success.
shit
That's a
that
big question right now for
Trump's
the United
advocating
States.
for.
Right,
The uniparty foreign policy.
All right.
Attack Iran. You gotta listen to it. You gotta see it. As long as you look through it at the through the lens of knowing what it is, and that is a very good description of it. State propaganda. So let's listen to a little Al Jazeera. Yeah, this is wild to watch. It's just so interesting how consistently over the course of 30 years they've said that Iran is so close to a nuclear weapon, and it's just been proven over and over and over and over again not to be the case. There's been obviously the U.S. said everybody should evacuate Tehran, which is extremely concerning. Even Chinese state media, I believe, came out with something about it as well. Oh, Jesus Christ, sorry. If I can't directly find it, I'm not gonna say, but I did hear. So Trump is saying that he wants to meet with Iran. I don't know how realistic that is. It doesn't seem realistic to me. Let me see. This is funny.
He's weak and he's ineffective. So the only way he figures that he's going to get reelected, and as sure as you're sitting there, is to start a war with Iran. Now, I'm more militant and more militaristic than the president. I believe in strength. but to start a war in order to get elected, and I believe that's going to happen, would be an outrage. Our president.
Right. Seems like they don't even bother to try to make their propaganda coherent. I guess they just, it's a thinly veiled that they were in occupation in hopes that people could. Yeah. Ultimately, I think the normie perception of it is basically like Iran bad. And ever since, probably ever since we overthrew the Shah in the 50s, there's been a concerted effort to create this propaganda against and this villainization of Iran. And I'm not going to sit here and advocate for the domestic policies of Iran at all. But to say, like, for the past 30 years, even I brought up something like that, what was it? See if I can bring it up again. Where did I? Is that not it? It was basically, I believe, there's never any justification for why they're bad. They continue to show and to have compliance with UN, the UN watchdogs that make sure that their refinement levels are not at a level in which they can obviously procreate like the conditions where they can make it an atomic weapon. It's never been even close. They've been in compliance, and they were better, and they were not under harsh economic sanctions when, and I don't advocate for him at all, but it was a better deal with the JCPOA in 2015. And we ally with the Saudis. Yeah, they want to nuke us, and there's a fatwa between. Yeah, and they hack journalists to death with bone saws. They have, their 9/11. Most of the members that were on those flights were from Saudi Arabia and Egypt, but we don't want to talk about that though. But they've been in compliance. Trump comes in 2018, gets rid of the deal, and then reinstates the economic sanctions. You look at, and he had the audacity to say during the G7 today, and I covered it earlier, how, oh, well, we don't want to put any economic sanctions on Russia because it's going to be very costly. It's like, you have no issue if the country in question is brown, mostly brown, or like Muslim-led. You have no issue. It doesn't matter what party. The liberals, the conservatives, they have no issue sanctioning Iraq, Iran. It's Syria. Doesn't matter. Yeah, the passwords miraculously appeared, right? Yeah. That's a whole thing. But yeah, no, just the perception in the Islamophobia in the United States contributes to this false. That's a whole weird thing. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole, but the Israelis that were celebrating, I guess it was a whole rabbit hole with them owning an office space nearby, and they did an investigation. I didn't look too much into it, but it was just fucking weird. We have Israelis that were celebrating while the towers were falling. If you have more information about it, feel free to contribute. But I saw that, Yeah, they were there to document it. Yeah. I must have seen. That was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. It's very, very hazy, but yeah, Mossad's involvement in our politics, foreign politics, it's so insidious, and they're basically this grounded naval carrier in the Middle East for us, and they're completely okay, obviously, with the status quo. All the U.S. politicians are completely okay with the status quo because AIPAC gives them tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there's also an Israeli woman who gave an interview with his mother. Yes.
Well, big catastrophe, and I'm Israeli, and I hope that now people understand what we have to deal with, the kind of people that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. It's just a catastrophe.
Ugh. Gross. I think I've been afraid to go down that rabbit hole. Honestly, and I know I sound like so cowardly and like intellectually lazy for it, but like I just know it's like obviously there was some fuck shit that went on, but the Mossad angle and like her just smiling on TV. Oh, now you know what we go through. Yeah. It was the Muslims. You gotta always look at the Muslims.
Question whatsoever that Saddam is seeking and is working.
Yeah.
And is
same
advancing
players,
towards the
same
development of
situation.
nuclear weapons. No question whatsoever. The nuclear armed Saddam will place the security of our entire
specifically what BBC announcement?
world
If you have it, you can throw it in the
and
chat.
make no mistake about it, if and once Saddam has nuclear weapons, the terror network will have nuclear weapons. There is
I didn't know that.
question
No.
whatsoever
Before
that
it happened.
Saddam is. If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you
So this is
that it will
September
have
12th.
enormous positive reverberations on the region. And I think that people sitting right next door in Iran, young people, and many others will say, the time of such regimes, of such despots, is gone. There is a new age. Something new is happening.
And that is speculation on your part, or you have some evidence to that effect?
I was asked the same question in 1986. I had written a book in which I had said that the way to deal with terrorist regimes, well, with terror, was to deal with the terrorist regimes. And the way to deal with the terrorist regimes, among other things, was to apply military force against them.
The way we did in Afghanistan.
The way, for example, I want to answer your question.
Well, I guess
Mr.
I'm running out of time, so I quickly was trying to get there. We've done, I think, what you proposed in Afghanistan, yet I haven't seen that sort of neighborhood effect.
Well, I think there's been an enormous effect. The effect
Yeah,
was we were
great
told
effect.
that there would be a contrary effect. First of all, people said that there would be tens of thousands of people streaming into Afghanistan, zealots who would be outraged by America's action, and this would produce a counter-reaction in the Arab world.
But I think
what
what I'm
happened?
saying that when you take an action like we did in Afghanistan, we're going to see all the other countries just fold.
No, what we saw is something else. First of all, we saw everybody streaming out of Afghanistan. The second thing we saw is all the Arab countries and many Muslim countries trying to side with America, trying to be okay with America. The application of power is the most important thing in winning the war on terrorism. If I had to say, what are the three principles of winning the war on terror? It's like, what are the three principles of real estate, the three L's, location, location, location? The three principles of winning the war on terror are the three W's, winning, winning, and winning. The more victories you amass, the easier the next victory becomes. The first victory in Afghanistan makes the second victory in Iraq that much easier. The second victory in Iraq will make the third victory that much easier too, but it may...
Yes, please, just preemptively attack all of these countries. We did it with the 6 Days War. We keep doing it. I mean, please. We illegally occupy the West Bank. We illegally occupy Gaza. Come on. Just do what we do. You know you want to. I mean, you're moving towards fascism anyway. So, just bomb them. It's fine. You don't have to really even have a pretense. You can just say, well, you know, we felt attacked and we have a right to defend ourselves. They always have a right to defend themselves. Palestinians celebrate 9/11? No way.
The United States had been subject to this attack. What are we to make of that, Jennifer? Yasser Arafat may issue this condemnation. Look at this. We're seeing people applauding, clapping, smiling, happy to know that thousands of Americans have died in this sneak attack. And there you see a V for victory sign held up to the camera. What are we to make of that? And what are we to make of what about what Yasser Arafat said today?
The United States, blamed by some Palestinians for its ongoing support, as it is seen, of Israel in this conflict, in this Middle Eastern conflict. However, while some Palestinians were taking to the streets in apparent celebration, one youth was quoted as saying, as he received a
And indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were. And it seems that this was not a result
World
of
Trade
a new
Center
attack.
7.
It was because the building had been weakened during this morning.
The volume is extremely low.
Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. There's almost a sense downtown in New York behind me, down by the World Trade Centers, of just an area completely closed off as the rescue workers try to do their job. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash, and we know that behind that there's an empty piece of what was a very familiar New York skyline.
Now, more on the latest.
Definitely some weird stuff. There, unfortunately, with every single event like this, and this is just the American version, you have so many conspiracy theories that I think deliberately cloud the shadiness of what actually happened, but yeah, that could be a whole stream, but I am going to get back to it. So, Axios reports the White House is discussing with Iran the possibility of meeting this week between U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. So we'll see how those meetings go. We'll see if the meetings even take place. We'll see if this increased posturing from the United States ultimately dissolves the talks before they even happen. I did want to yeah. It is shady shit. And the trillions that went missing from the Pentagon as well. I guess nothing that I've seen.
Israel attacked Iran's state TV during a live broadcast. The state TV compound was in the area where Israel issued an evacuation threat, which is home to embassies, UN agencies, and diplomatic staff. It comes as more strikes have hit western and eastern parts of Tehran. The entire country has been under attack. In the northwest, an Israeli strike hit a hospital. The wards were damaged and patients were injured. Iran's foreign ministry is calling it a war crime. In the early hours of Monday, Israel fired more missiles. Air defense systems in Tehran were activated. Israeli attacks have killed at least 228 Iranians and injured more than 1,200 others. Iran says Israel is killing civilians, including 70 women and children. The entire country is under attack. Israel's Air Force has claimed to have struck Mashhad airport about 2,300 kilometers from Israel, making it the...
We'll see what their capacity to continue keeping up with the missile strikes are. I mean, Iran has a mountainous region as well. They have... they do have a lot of... a good amount of missiles that were being supplied to them through Syria. But they, right now at least, I don't see any support coming from any other country, major country. I don't know. Obviously, China has a very anti-interventionist policy. So I don't know if they'll assist them. But I don't see any major country offering any militaristic support at the moment. The U.S. has too much of a stranglehold.
The longest reach of Israeli attacks since Friday. Israeli strikes have targeted Iranian nuclear and missile facilities and assassinated military commanders and scientists. In the last 24 hours, Islamic Revolutionary Guard...
Which I was saying, there was a take on that being its own independent war crime, specifically targeting scientists because they are non-combatants. They are academics that are not aiding the military in any way because they're not enriching uranium to the point where they could use it and weaponize it. So they're specifically non-enemy combatants. They're civilians, and they're providing they're providing a public good in terms of scientific research for institutes. And he was talking about how it basically merits a war crime because they were targeted as civilians. And I think I'm pretty much in agreement with that. But that's not a new thing.
Guard Corps intelligence chief Mohammad Kazemi and his deputy Hassan Muhaqqiq were killed. President Masoud Pezeshkian has warned Tehran's response will be more decisive and severe if Israel's hostile actions continue.
They have already passed all the red lines, and when they pass these red lines, Iran needs to take serious actions against that. The same model that was happening in Gaza and in Lebanon is being repeated by the Israelis here.
In response, there was another hit in Haifa. Iranian missiles hit near the city's energy plant. Israel's main port city is being targeted by Iran after Israel attacked Iranian oil facilities.
Yeah, he directly wants Hamas to continue to exist within the region. I mean, the ceasefire agreements are shot down. Hamas is advocating and even saying, we'll completely dissolve our the militaristic part of Hamas will dissolve. The civil part of Hamas can exist, and we can form a technocratic government surrounding the existing members of Hamas. And the Israelis view it as a non-starter because they want Hamas to continue to exist, to be able to utilize them as a means to continue to ethnically cleanse the region. And he was just caught saying that he's funding these small groups, groups that are raiding aid trucks. And I mean, they're full out and about with it. It's like politics in America right now in the Conservative Party, but on steroids. Just no one's hiding it. No one's hiding it anymore.
Air defense systems in Tel Aviv were triggered early on Monday morning to intercept Iranian missiles. Air raid sirens were activated in cities across Israel, and people were told to take shelter. Multiple buildings have been destroyed as Israel's advanced air defenses were unable to block all missiles. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps says it's using new methods in this latest wave, which disrupted Israel's defense systems and caused them to target each other. Iranian targets included Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's residence and military sites.
The government has not been able to speak clearly about such an off-ramp or about an exit strategy or about an end game. Many options have been
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event. The
5 Israelis were detained for 10 weeks and finally deported on immigration violations.
floated from regime change to slowing down the nuclear program. So a lot of Israelis are more cheerful than they...
Didn't realize I was muted. I'm going to have to look into that. And I will look at the ABC News report on it as well. I'll do a deep dive off stream. But interesting stuff.
It's been in a while, especially after the debacle of Gaza.
Israel triggered the crisis with its surprise attack on Friday. Iran says the aggression proves Israel does not abide by any humanitarian, legal or international rules. And as the back and forth strikes continue, more civilians are dying on both sides. Osama bin Javid, Al Jazeera.
Make sure to subscribe.
I wish I had time for this, but it's always interesting to hear Jeffrey Sachs's opinion, and especially on Al Jazeera. Obviously, he's an architect of shock therapy that ultimately ruined Russia's economy and privatized most of the nationalized infrastructure. see what this is. Well, the fact that they failed the polygraphs isn't really shocking to me. The polygraphs aren't really a good measure of someone telling the truth and not. But because he had background in the Israeli intelligence, is a very, I mean, you have to be in the Israeli military and serve. Yeah, I'm gonna look more into it. It's definitely, I mean, like, people smiling and just bizarre shit. Like, you're seeing 2 buildings being bombed and people dying. Very, very weird conduct, to say the least. I'll definitely look more into that. I did want to show this, the sentiment of friend or enemy, Israel, ally. It's starting to go down. Such a high number to start with. So crazy. Not sure. Enemy is starting to go down a little bit, I'm assuming. But this is in March, so it's probably changed quite a bit. It's only up until March. Let me see if I can get anything. Well, it's starting to improve. Starting very, very slowly. You have more American Jews that are more critical about Israel than I think people think, but okay. Well, maybe they want their voices to be heard. Maybe they want to counteract the medium of people that are coming, that watch Fox and CNN and MSNBC every day. Don't know. Definitely not. It might not be the best representation of the American people's sentiment. But sometimes it's the best barometer that you can get. But yeah, the people that are actually critical, like, who knows? And then if you were to do a poll on X, it would be different than Instagram, which would be different than Blue Sky, which would be different than Facebook. All of them have different demographics, and all of them have different political sway, one side or the other. X is heavily right. Facebook is kind of also the same. It more sways to an older demographic, which tends to vote right.
The learners in the professional development program are,
Instagram,
as a rule, self-starters.
Has a younger demographic, so it's kind of split. I would say it would sway more left, but then Blue Sky is more predominantly left. That's what I was saying at the beginning of the stream, is like people that spend so much time on social media, that get all of their information from social media, will find themselves being reinforced by not only the app that they're on, by also the algorithmic tuning of the app realizing what kind of content that you like. It's just like, that's why I watch Fox, that's why I watch CNN, that's why I watch, and I look up a lot of state run media. I'll even I'll put on Al Jazeera, Politico, Reuters, Associated Press, to just get as big of a cross section as I possibly can get. And sometimes it's still one message throughout the whole thing. It's interesting to see how there's a more of a permission structure as of late for even state-run legacy media to be critical since the humanitarian crisis, since the man-made hunger campaign, famine, on the brink of famine, has been out there in the news now. Even I can't believe even like Piers Morgan is now pushing back against the Hasbara that has been coming out from Israeli Knesset members and different people that are going on his show. Just never would have expected that. But it's interesting to see how the permission structure changes over time. And it's like little by little, you're allowed to say things. So, anywho. So to kind of wrap up, we talked about the Minnesota shooter being apprehended. We talked about the G7 meeting and Trump leaving early, the concessions that were given to the UK, and we talked about the Israel-Iran conflict, talking about how the axis of resistance has been very much diminished, and when I reference that, it's Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Ansar Allah movement in Yemen, and we will continue to see, if you ever met psychopathic rich kids whose parents bought them into I think Sarah Run makes yeah. Looking at George Bush's presidency and realizing like his origins in the Skull and Bones, and yeah, it's funny. A lot of these rich fucks that come in and are senators and congressmen, they advocate specifically, the whole cultural war bullshit that they'll distract you with is the need to rescind stuff like DEI, and the biggest thing that we could do to make it so college is more fair is get rid of legacy admissions, but they never would want to do that because there's a continuation there. Yale, yeah. Yep. So, it is definitely a generational thing. And that is a whole separate conversation. Propaganda, yeah. Every college, like, yeah, Harvard is its own thing. What else? So we talked about that, and we talked about Israel, Iran, continuing strikes. No major strikes as of since I've been streaming, and nothing that has been reported, at least on my end. Oh, well, as I say that, now Israeli artillery is continuing shelling. Let me see. As I say that, and here I was thinking I was going to go to bed. Stream. This is just well, the response. Oh, this isn't. Yeah, that's just the IDF bombing Gaza. Huh. So nothing for major strikes. Israel's actively getting rid of live streaming equipment. Israel's currently restricting its citizens from leaving the country, even on repatriation flights, meaning meant to bring Israelis home from abroad. According to reports, domestic airlines have been instructed to not allow passengers to board these flights. As a result, planes are leaving Israel empty to retrieve stranded citizens overseas, but are not permitted to carry anyone out of the country. The move appears aimed at preventing mass departures. They are also very comfortable with having their anti-missile installations right in densely populated neighborhoods. So if they were ever attacked, then you would have a lot of civilian casualties, wouldn't you? It's a lot of projection for what they accuse of Hamas doing, but anyway, we kind of went over a vast amount of things. Not really fast, but covered some things. And I said this was going to be a quick one. It's even in the title. But when you get talking, sometimes these things happen. So I look like a garbage bag. I came from the gym, didn't shower, went right into streaming. Interesting. Is this not updating? It might not show the whole thing. Yeah, it doesn't show the whole thing. So anyway, long day of a long day tomorrow. Maybe I can go back to back. That'd be cool. It would be later on in the day, potentially around 7 o'clock, where I could jump on. We'll see what happens in the day. We'll see if there's further talks between the Trump admin and Iran, between a nuclear deal. I really don't like the pretenses in which the deal is being discussed, but we'll see if anything, materializes there. And yeah, we'll see how those events go. I want to get back into the immigration talks too, because it's still going on. It's still very contentious, and I feel like there's a lot of different things, obviously, that I would like to cover, but I picked a couple of topics, and hopefully we'll be able to cover more tomorrow. But guys, everybody that watched today, I greatly appreciate you. The only thing that I ask from you guys, other than relaxing, letting your hair down, asking some questions, putting some things into the chat, which you guys have been great at doing, is just send this to your friends. Get the community larger so there'll be more people to hang out, talk. Obviously, I want more discourse. I want more perspectives. And as this grows, we're just going to be able to do more and more things. I'm going to be able to, obviously, if I'm able to put any money into it, really, really get down and dirty with the research and not just rely on secondhand, third-hand, fourth, hand stuff, I'm actually going to be able to maybe do a bit of really good research in journalism. And I would like to actually use some of the money to do some college courses and do some things that will get me better with my media literacy and stuff. I have good intuition, but I try to look into things as deeply as I possibly can and question it from an inherently skeptical framework, which usually filters out a lot of stuff. But anyway, I greatly appreciate everybody watching, as always. And if you can send it to any of your buddies, if you can hit a follow, if you can, do whatever that will contribute to the channel, it's always greatly appreciated. I do have some of my socials, I think, in my bio. I'm trying to build those up, so hopefully more people in those social accounts will find the show, find the stream, and then obviously ipso facto get the community bigger, and we all benefit. So having said that, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you being awesome. Love all y'all, and have a good night.